What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl T Louise. Today's video, y'all, is the first video of 2024. I believe that this video is also going to be the video that sets the tone and the foundation for my content creation journey this year. It's been a long time coming. I have consistently been saying, oh, I'm gonna take content creation seriously. I'm gonna do this and that. And I really haven't been taking it seriously. But today's episode for the Twisted 20s podcast is called Piecing My Life Back Together After Grief. I hope that this episode encourages you. I hope that it strengthens you. But most importantly, I hope that it encourages you to lean on Christ in the midst of trials, tribulations. Some of the hardest battles that I have faced in January, I would not have made it through if it wasn't for God, if it wasn't for my relationship with God, if it wasn't for the community that I had around me. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. If you guys enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you guys subscribe to my channel so that you guys never miss any of my podcast episodes, any of my personal content that I will also be posting. And I just want you guys to know that I love and I appreciate every single one of y'all. So with that being said, y'all, we about to go ahead and get into today's podcast episode. What's up, y'all? So I know it's been a minute since I have put out an episode. I know I had initially planned to put out Twisted 20s episodes in January, and I'm about to really dive into that because there was really so much that really transpired in my life in January within like the first week or two of January that really kind of halted everything. And so I said to myself, okay, I've grieved. I've done everything I need to do. It's time for me to start piecing my life back together. And not just piecing my life back together just from the things that have happened to me in January, but also piecing my life together from the things that I have dealt with over the past, I would say 5 to 6 years. There's been things that I've really dealt with. I'm finally coming to a place where I'm able to accept my mom's death. And that was something that was really hard for me to really accept. I just started trauma therapy maybe like a year or two ago. So I'm really actually kind of still in the process. I worked through the trauma aspect of it. So now I'm actually allowing myself to grieve that passing, the loss of my mom. So there's just been so much that has really just happened at the start of the year, but I am just still confident and I'm still believing that this is going to be the best year ever. But anyway, if you guys are joining me on YouTube, welcome in the room. I'm so glad that you are joining me. This is going to be the first video of many videos this year. I have always been saying, I want to take content creation seriously. I want to take my podcast seriously, but I have never really gone 100% in on the purpose, the platform, the ideas, or anything that I really and truly believe that God is calling me to. So I would like to dedicate this episode and this video to be one of the first videos of many that will document my content creation journey. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. If you are listening to me on any of your favorite podcast platforms, I appreciate you guys as well, and make sure you subscribe so that you guys get those notifications for when Twisted 20s drops a new episode, y'all. I'm telling y'all, and the auntie Louise content that is coming out this year is going to be, I would consider it's going to be fire. I have really been intentionally planning and being very strategic and intentional with the ideas that I want to put out onto social media. But like I said, y'all, the start of this year has been just crazy. The day that my mom passed 5 years ago, which was January 9th, I was literally on the phone with my best friend, grieving my mom, talking to her about my mom. I'm also encouraging her at the same time because she had lost her grandfather maybe a month prior to us having this conversation on January 9th. And so as I'm on the phone with my best friend, my little cousin texts me, and she sent me a text message that I was not prepared for, but also something that I knew would eventually come at some point, just not as soon as that day. My grandmother passed away. And if anyone who knows me, family, friend, my grandmother was my baby. You know, my mom was my best friend, my ride or die, my ace coon. But my granny though, she was my heart. Like, my mom was my heart too, but my grandmother was my grandmother. I feel like grandparents have a special place in our hearts as grandkids. And I'm trying to get emotional just even talking about it. But when I initially got the text message that she had passed away, I felt so much regret. The reason why I felt regret was because I felt like I left her in the nursing home. I hated going to the nursing home. I didn't want to see my granny in the nursing home. It was just something about seeing her in that place that just didn't sit right with me. And of course, you know, life goes on. Me and Davion have full-time jobs here in Atlanta. I'm working, he's working. You know, my car, she got a mind of her own. Sometimes she want to work. Sometimes she want to get to doing the jerk, you know, the 1-2 step, you know, the stanky leg. Sometimes she just do what she do. And so between all of that, we weren't really able to go home as much as we really wanted to. So y'all get what I'm trying to say. I didn't get to see my grandmother as much with her being in a nursing home. So I go to Nashville. We go to Nashville. We were there for, I would say, probably like a week or so. My grandmother passed away the same day my mom passed. And we buried her on the same day I buried my mom 5 years ago. So on top of that, we get to my grandmother's funeral. And my auntie comes to me and she says, hey, we're not having a repast, or they said we were having a repast later, but I could have sworn they said we was not having a repast. So we get there and they say, hey, you know, we're not having a repast. We're going straight to the hospital to see Auntie Linda. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Now, mind you, now my Auntie Linda, who I personally have never known to ever really be sick or anything like that, she, from what I have heard from other family members, is she had been on the breathing machine and things like that. So she was having lung issues and she needed a double lung transplant. Now, I've never heard of that. I think it's something that's very rare. I'm pretty sure it is very rare. Because, you know, oftentimes when we hear about transplants, we hear about people who need kidney, you know, stuff like that. So the day we bury my grandmother, my Auntie Linda passes away. We are literally at the hospital watching her take her last breath. Well, y'all, when I tell y'all, I was praying, I'm believing, like, I'm speaking the word of God over her. She shall live. She shall not die. I didn't care what nobody was saying. I was convinced that my Auntie Linda was walking up out of that hospital alive, healthy, and well, okay? That was how much I was believing that God was going to heal her. And so I'm in the room praying, and I'm like, God, if I am the only person in this room that believes that you can heal her, that she will walk out of this room healthy and alive, please do it. Like this, I'm literally begging God at this point. Y'all, when she took her last breath, I immediately turned around. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I am literally thinking this is going to be this is going to be a transitional moment for my family. I'm like, we are literally about to see a walking, living testimony before our eyes. Like, this is what I'm thinking. And my Aunt Connie says that was her last breath. And everybody in the room starts crying. And I know I sound excited when I'm talking about this, but I am genuinely sad about my Auntie Linda passing, y'all. The reason why I'm so joyful about her passing is the understanding that God gave me. I could have initially been mad I could have been angry. I could have cursed God. I could have questioned God. But what I did was I saw answers. And I went to my spiritual mother and I called her and I said, hey, what happens when we are praying, we're believing that God is going to heal someone and they still pass away? I'm talking about speaking the word of God over them. They shall live, they shall not die. I'm talking about full on having faith, okay? And they still pass away. And let me get my notes up because I really want to read exactly what my spiritual mom said, because after she said what she said, it brought me so much peace. And I really understood that even in the midst of grief, I realized that if we keep our minds and our hearts on the Lord, He really gets us through a lot of things. And when my mom passed, I didn't have the relationship with God that I have now. You know, I still say this to this day. I told my spiritual mom this, like, if I didn't have a relationship that I have with God, I would have been somewhere smoking 5, 6, 7 blunts. My granny died. I saw my auntie Linda take her last breath. I would have been stoned, okay? I would have been high. Somewhere high, eating, just depressed, okay? What she said was, when people see the glory of God, they don't want to come back. And she said when people experience that type of glory and they look back at the world and they see their family and they see all the bills, the issues that they had to deal with back on earth, and then they look back at the glory of God, would they really choose to come back? And it was in that moment that I understood that my auntie Linda was healed. That God He did heal her. She was in fact healed and healthy. And that brought me a lot of peace. And I know that there was a lot of sadness and grief and sorrow around, but I had so much joy in my heart. I had so much joy in my heart for her, because you know what? My auntie Linda, she was a servant. She served people and didn't expect anything in return. She had a real servant's heart. And if y'all could have been at her funeral, when I say standing room only, I'm so thankful that I was family, because if I was family, I would have been standing up. I wouldn't probably even been able to get in. When I say people parking down the street and walking to the service, people parked the parking lot full. Nobody else can fit. And everybody said the same thing about her. She served. She did things for other people. And it's just like, how can I even be sad about that? You know, I'm sad because I won't be able to see her anymore, but I'm joyful because I know that she is healed, restored, and at peace. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys, because that experience taught me that if I am able to keep my mind, keep my heart, keep my thoughts, keep my eyes on God, that I won't be able to spiral out. I am telling y'all now, like, when my mama passed away, the night she passed away, I was smoking. The days after my mama passed away, I was smoking. I will never forget, it was January. My mom passed away January 9th, January 11th. I was in the car and it really had hit me that my mom was gone, and I was smoking. And I smoked because I didn't want to feel the pain. I wanted to feel numb. I didn't want to feel nothing. I wanted to feel a void in my life. It just brought me so much peace to really understand that. And I'm so thankful that I have the relationship with God that I have now, because I know for a fact if I didn't, I would have been 2019 T. Louise. I wouldn't be 2024 T. Louise. I would be 2019 T. Louise, smoking a blunt, drinking, and just wanting to feel numb. And so I'm so thankful that I was able to receive the type of revelation that I was able to receive after that. And, you know, even in the midst of experiencing all of that, God really, like when I say I experienced some breakthroughs, and it's not really anything I can really like talk about or go too much in depth without like giving every bit of detail, which I'm not going to do. But just know that even in the midst of grief, sorrow, and trauma and chaos, that God provided so many breakthroughs for me last month. And I really understood that God brought me through on the other side of the mountain through all of that. I like to look at it as a test. And I like to look at it as if God was seeing, what are you going to do when you're going through trials and tribulations? Are you going to stay in this place of depression? Are you going to stay in this place of sorrow? Are you going to stay in this place of grief? Or are you going to pick yourself up, continue to worship, pray, seek me, and allow me to bring you to the other side? Because I really and truly believe that sitting in sorrow, grief, and depression is a choice. And I know because I can speak on it. I chose to be depressed every day. I chose to sit in my sorrows every day. I chose to do that. I didn't want to get up. I chose to do those things. And when God brought breakthrough in my life that I've been praying for years, I'm talking about things that I'm consistently praying for the past 4 or 5 years, to experience the breakthrough through all the chaos. Whew. All I can say is God is good. God is, well, what's that name? What's that man? JJ, is it Ice JJ or JJ Fish or whatever his name is? He said, Jesus, the greatest, the greatest. Jesus, the greatest, the greatest. He is omnipotent. Yay. Facts. Okay, he is magnificent. He is everything. And so I gotta look at my notes, y'all, because I got a lot of notes that I want to make sure I hit everything, because this episode is not just about the grief and piecing my life together after losing my grandmother and my auntie Linda and my mom and my like literally I've lost my mom, my dad, my granny, and now my auntie Linda. And so it's been a lot. It's been a lot that I've really dealt with the past 5 to 6 years. And so I sought wise counsel even in the midst of the breakthroughs. I don't want to make any decisions that may not be of God. And so much to the point where I'm like, if it ain't God, I don't want it. That's just my opinion. If it's not God, I don't want it. And so I sought wise counsel for that. And I just wanted to make sure I wasn't making the wrong decisions, because it's so important to me. It was really important to me that I didn't make the wrong decision. Simply because if it wasn't something that God wanted me to do, I don't want to deal with the consequences of that. I don't want to deal with the consequences of being out of order. I'm just going to say that. And that was the fear of God that was in me. So I just didn't want to deal with that, but I definitely received the breakthroughs that God needed me to receive. Outside of all the grief and everything, I really have realized, I would say this month alone, January alone, I really realized that we're all here on borrowed time. Okay? Like serious borrowed time. And what we do with that time is so important. It's so important. There's not another way that I can express that. What we do on this earth with the time that we are given is so important. And I personally dealt with the struggle of feeling as though like I was already behind, because I didn't start January 1st. I haven't put no video out, no content. Like, this is stuff I'm dealing with after I've come back home, before I go back for my auntie Linda's funeral. Like, I'm beating myself up. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I could put a video out before I leave. Maybe I can record a podcast episode, this and that. But it's like, I wasn't ready. And sometimes we have to give ourselves grace, but I also have understood that we can't abuse God's grace either. Okay. And that's something that I feel like I would be doing, would be abusing God's grace. And that's something that I do not want to do. But I also understood that just because I spent a lot of time in December, like literally planning out my videos, organizing my thoughts, content ideas. Like, if I could literally show y'all everything that I have planned out, which I probably will show y'all eventually. If I could show y'all everything, y'all be like, oh, okay, girl, you really been planning. Like, yes, I've been planning. And then when January came and I did nothing, I was like, here we go again. And I was just like beating myself up. But during some time in my reflection, I understood that God still has time to make some stuff shake, okay? With my obedience, of course, because God can do nothing if I'm not obedient to what he has called me to do. God can do nothing if I'm not putting out the videos he needs me to put out, okay? I have to do the work and then he will take care of the rest. Although I feel like I always was in this place where I was like, oh, I want to do this. I'm going to do it. And I want to take this seriously. And then I wouldn't do it, or I wouldn't take it seriously. Or I would say I give it maybe 50 to 70% of seriousness, not a full 100%. And so I feel like it was just because I let fear, shame, and a wavering faith, and sometimes just really just outright disobedience, is really what kept me from moving forward in the purpose that, in the assignments that God has given to me. Like, I know for a fact the podcast, I know for a fact God has given that to me to do and to be obedient with. And I'm not saying that I'm not 100% going in on my podcast, but I know I could be doing more, especially with the marketing and the content creation and all that. But I just feel like while I was in Nashville for my aunt's funeral, and just to see all the people that came to her funeral, but not just that, but to see that so many people saw the servant in her, it really touched me. And I feel like I have like this now renewed faith, or this renewed perspective of life and purpose. And I want to take my purpose seriously. I want to be obedient to what God has called me to do. I don't want to play around with it. I really do not. And I feel like with this renewed faith that I have, I can embrace that this is truly going to be one of the best years that I have experienced in a long time. When my mom passed away, it was a rough year, but it was once again probably one of the best years of my life. I went to Thailand. I met B. Simone, Jackie O, which I miss her so much. But it's like I had such a wonderful year. I traveled the world and I met all these different people. But even in the midst of all of that, I still got to do these amazing things. And I feel like this year is going to be the same thing. Even though the beginning of the year started off rough, it started out with grief, it started out with sorrow and sadness, it's still going to be the best year ever. Like, I still believe that there is opportunities and doors that God is going to open up for me that I wouldn't have been able to even see if in the midst of grief and sorrow, I didn't seek him. That's how I feel. I believe that this is going to be a year that I am fully walking in some of the promises that God has for my life. And I believe that it's going to take my obedience, my endurance, my consistency and discipline, which I'm still learning. But I will say going to the gym has really been teaching me a little bit of that. I'm just going to keep focusing on my health, my purpose, and really just being obedient to what God has really called me to do. I would say this year I'm probably going to be striving more with my walk with Christ. Continuing on my health journey, y'all. I will be doing a video about that, because when I tell y'all, this health journey is not easy, but it is worth it. It is. Becoming a better steward over my finances, because listen, in my prayer time today, God gave me pow, and he was like, you need to stop spending unnecessary money on eating out. And I was like, okay, you didn't have to come for me like that, but you did. So I'm just saying, whatever it is that God has called you to do, whatever it is that God has placed upon your heart, whether you are experiencing depression, whether a family member died, whether anything that is causing you to be in a place of stagnation, causing you to be in a place of not moving forward, I need you to seek God even in the midst of it. Seek him even if it hurts. Seek him even if you're sad. Seek him even if it's too painful to get out of the bed. Seek him. I'm telling you now, I'm a walking, living, breathing testimony of seeking God in the midst of trauma, in the midst of sadness, in the midst of grief, and experiencing breakthrough, even in the midst of all those things. I wish I could really go into more detail about it, which I probably will later on down the road, just not right now because I have to use wisdom and discernment. But I really and truly pray that you will be encouraged from this video today. Be encouraged from this episode today, because God has called each and every single one of us for a purpose, for a reason, to encourage and strengthen others through our purpose, through our assignments. And we have to be able to be obedient to when God says move and when God says stop. And just keep in mind that you can always worship God in the midst of the deepest, darkest struggles and battles. I love you guys so much. I really do. And I really pray that this episode has been encouraging. I pray that it has been eye-opening, but I also hope that it encourages you to really seek God, even in the midst of what is going on, even in the midst of what's going on in the world. Like, there's things that's going on around the world that can be sad. It can be dark, but God is still there. God is still in control, and he will help us get through the very things that we feel like we will never make it through. I promise you that. Like I said, I'm a walking billboard testimony for it. Okay. Anyway, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for joining me on today's video and episode. If you guys enjoyed today's Twisted 20s episode, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button so that you guys do not miss another episode, as well as the content of auntie Louise. And yeah, make sure you tune in every week for a Twisted 20s podcast episode. I love you. Peace, love, and blessings. T. Louise.